Hello and welcome to the show. This week's Failrace versus the community, we would go racing with B-Class Convertibles. Our first race was at the Nürburgring GP circuit, a rather nasty first corner here, while most of the vehicles get through relatively okay. There was a little bit of bumping, and unfortunately for a poor Jaguar further back, would get it turned round. I managed to escape around the outside with the Plymouth. I often do like to go for that tactic at turn one. You just kind of hide out wide and stay away from the mayhem that can happen, sort of the apex of the opening hairpin. And my Prowler was working its way up through the order. The Datsun that we are following was coming under threat from a Mazda MX-5. The MX-5 getting a better run down this short straight would get to the inside. Pontiac would sweep around the outside of a Mercedes as we all bunch up through the next corner. The Cobra slightly slowing the field down. The Datsun with acceleration in these cars. Relatively light vehicles in this field is able to pull a little bit of a safety margin back to the Solstice before they come around the hairpin. Yeah, it hadn't quite been the cleanest of starts ever at this track, but most of the front cars had got away. My Plymouth was absolutely loving this circuit, a surprisingly quick car. This Prowler is coming up against a Rolls-Royce Dawn, a very, very large vehicle. The Rolls-Royce can be a little difficult to pass at times, but a good cutback as we head down this back straight would put the Plymouth ahead. However, the Rolls-Royce, lots of power, lots of straight line speed in that car was right there. I thought about having a dive up the inside of the MX-5. In the end, I just kind of compromised myself, taking too tighter a line through the chicane. That would put the Rolls-Royce back up alongside as we head towards the final turn. Now, I know I can out-corner the Rolls. I think about going around the outside, and I do get the Prowler all the way alongside and keep the position just about, and then we come to a straight. The Prowler, very much a handling car here. It's decent straight line speed, but no match for the Rolls-Royce as we hurtle down towards the first corner. I'm still stuck trying to go the long way round. I give the Rolls-Royce room on the inside, and in the end the handling of the Plymouth would win out. Managing to keep it around the outside of turn one, I could then make a clear gap through the next corner and pull away before we would ever get to another straight. Further back, there was plenty of fighting going on in this field. Mercedes was trying desperately to fend off the Mazda MX-5 here. The MX-5 getting a better run through that second corner, would get up the inside. But these are quite wide turns, and you can often get away with running too wide through the section. Still, the Mercedes is not giving up, although the Mazda does have the opportune line through that section. Datsun would get himself in trouble out on the grass. Mercedes was catching quickly and gets brave under braking. This is quite a tough place to go around the outside of another car, but the Mercedes would get it done and get ahead of the MX-5, although the Mazda can cut back on the exit behind them. The Datsun is there ready and waiting. There is another Cobra there standing by as well, looking for an opportunity. The MX-5 is to the inside at the hairpin. Mercedes looking for the long way around. The Datsun tries to make it three wide halfway around the hairpin as they head up now towards a very, very fast chicane. Scary place, this one, probably the scariest place of the lot to be going too wide. The Datsun thinks about trying to hold it around the outside. Very fast corner up there. In the end, the Datsun can't quite do it. It is, in these kind of cars, maybe a dab on the brakes. The Shelby's got the straight line speed, would come flying past the Mercedes and the Datsun after accelerating at the top of that crest. Though runs a little bit wide, is still clear enough. Datsun's back looking to the outside once more. He's not really going to find a huge amount of space out there. It was, all very frantic stuff. Now a Tiger is getting involved, trying to fight a way past that. So when you're racing in a group like that, you just can't afford to make a mistake. You end up out of position, and you're going to get in trouble. The Rolls-Royce Dawn was trying to cling on to positions, but was struggling a little bit. Just simply couldn't carry the corner speed that a lot of these other cars were able to. Would lose out to the MX-5. The Shelby Cobra there would find a way past. He was, though, trying to fend off the Pontiac, and you can see the acceleration the Rolls-Royce has. Huge amount of power in this car, often in comparison to the vehicles around it. Yes, there is a lot of weight, and it's a struggle getting it through these turns, but then as soon as we come to a little acceleration zone, the Pontiac's got a great run off of the turn. You can carry much better speed through these corners, but he's going to be far too far back when it comes to a braking zone. So yeah, getting past the Dawn was relatively difficult. Though if you thought the Dawn was fast, this Datsun was absolutely insane. Huge amounts of straight line speed, incredible acceleration, but a completed utter handful through the corners, which, yeah, was a fair way down the order, but still having some good fun racing nevertheless with this MX-5. As soon as it got to even the slightest of straight, Datsun was off. It would absolutely soar down the straights and then bounce and wibble and wobble and kind of just about teeter its way around a corner. The MX-5 would find a way back past, and then again the Datsun would be on the acceleration. Not very much you can do through here, although the Mazda does make things a little easier by running wide, even then being massively sort of wide, completely the wrong line, and still the MX-5 will make up far more time through the corners. However, that does mean that when it comes to the straight, the MX-5 doesn't quite have as much lead as it should do, and the Datsun will go soaring past the MX-5, making sure to give the 2000 plenty of space. It's sliding its way. That's not really a corner for most cars, but yeah, the Datsun very much sliding its way through their huge two-wheel moments through that chicane. The MX-5 is back there having a look, maybe trying up the inside into the final corner. The Datsun covers, can't get stopped in the end. The MX-5 will retake the position, although now they're going to a straight and the 2000 will absolutely muller it. As we headed towards the final lap, I had caught the back of the leader and was putting the Mercedes under increasing pressure with the Prowler. The Mercedes was that little bit quicker in a straight line. The Plymouth was that bit better through the corners as we break down into the first turn. And it's the speed you could get off of the turns with the Plymouth that was the most impressive. You could get such good acceleration, such good traction out of the turns. That's where it really, really made its lap time. The Mercedes was going defensive at this stage. I knew I couldn't get around the outside there. I was happy to cut back and focus on getting a good run out of this turn. You get a good run out of here, you can set yourself up down this straight, which is exactly what I had wanted to do. I got the Prowler alongside the Mercedes, certainly wasn't giving up. He was going to have to go the long way round through these next corners, but I've already seen a Mercedes do it once, and sure enough, if you can keep it there, you'll be on the inside for the next part. Although I have got the speed, I've got the corner grip to hold it around the outside of this car as we run now down towards the hairpin for the final time. Mercedes is fighting back on the inside. I wasn't quite sure if he was going to have a big dive or not. I gave him plenty of space on the inside. Again, I'm happy to run around the outside. I know I've got the grip in the Prowler to make it work. And finally, the Mercedes is going to have to yield as we run up through this fast chicane. Mercedes just simply doesn't have the grip to fight with the Prowler too wide through there. And I would take the lead in kind of a surprising thing. When I went and built this car up, I didn't quite expect it. I didn't realise it's quite going to be as fast as it is. It is one hell of a B-class car, this Prowler. In the end, the Mercedes tried to push a little too much through the chicane and would have a bit of an off. So the lead is slightly flattering to the Prowler, but definitely one of the quickest cars on track. A hell of a vehicle. I'm really mightily impressed with the Plymouth as it would take victory ahead of the Mercedes in second. Further back, it was all go on this final lap. The Jaguar that's pointing backwards at the start of the race had caught up towards the back end of the top 10 as an MX-5, and I think that was a Sunbeam Tiger. Indeed it was. We're having a fight through this final chicane, trying to fit too wide through a very narrow section. They both end up slowing each other down massively. The Jaguar actually runs out of space to try and make the most of that opportunity. The MX-5, trying to be brave at the final turn, runs just that bit too wide, gets a little bit of oversteer. The Jaguar will pounce and get a position on the final corner. Good opportunistic move from the Jaguar in that one. Yeah, it was good to see that there was these battles going down to the wire, you know, throughout the field. The Datsun was still, well, just as crazy as ever, still wiggling out towards the outside of the road on this final lap. We need to have a race-long battle with the MX-5. A Honda S2000 had joined in the fun for this final lap. The Honda trying to get to the inside of the Datsun as we head towards this final corner, and will get alongside. The MX-5 is, as ever, sat there ready and waiting for any opportunity. The Datsun's really struggling to get that power down out on the outside line there. The MX-5 briefly gets alongside, then everything gets mullered by the Datsun, and the Datsun would just about hold on to his position. I think it was about 16th place in the end back there. But yeah, even down there, they were still having some good fun fighting between the cars. On to race number 2, and we would head to the Silverstone National layout. Ignore the poor Corvette lagged out on the start line, so immediately having a ghost car on the grid. A very, very fast turn 1 here. And one thing that would come into effect, the curbs around here are horrendously nasty. I didn't really think about it when sort of starting the race ahead, but yeah, the curbs are really very vicious. You may have seen in the background a couple of cars were wheeling their way. They get heavily unsettled by the curbs. The leader, the Sunbeam, would make a mistake on this opening lap, go well off into the runoff area, meaning 2 MX-5s would end up briefly 1-2. The modern MX-5 seriously struggling with straight line speed compared to the Maserati Birdcage. The Sunbeam would be immediately back up into second. Incredible straight line speed in the Tigers to get past the Maserati as well. Now there's a Datsun trying to go the long way around this final corner. Honda S2000s getting involved. There's the Corvette. Is there a little bit of a gap to the cars behind? But yeah, this circuit, certainly with its relatively large number of straights, relatively long straights, if your car was a little bit lacking in straight line speed, as this MX-5 was, you did tend to struggle slightly. The Jaguar had monumental speed around here. I had been a little bit unfortunate in all of this and dumped down the order after getting slightly bumped off at turn 1. Now this was a quick stop race. I pitted on the second lap just to try and get myself out of too much traffic. Hadn't really worked though. In the end, up ahead of me, a Rolls Royce and another Prowler were fighting for position. Both of them were slow off a corner. I would make the most of my car's fantastic acceleration, although it was no match for the Rolls Royce. I would have a rather terrified moment as the Rolls Royce puts a wheel on the curb, spins the car. This is what I was talking about, these vicious curbs. He wasn't the only one either to fall foul of the curbs here. Spins the car right across the front of me. There was absolutely nothing that, no sort of warning I had to that one. I just sort of tapped the brakes and swerved out of the way, amazingly stayed out of the side of it. I then did not want to be stuck behind another Rolls Royce, so very quickly dove up the inside. The Prowler behind me tried to follow, didn't quite get it done as cleanly. That was a very, very terrifying moment, though, finding a Rolls Royce just spinning across the track in front of you. There was not quite as much excitement from this sort of quick stop race as we've had in previous ones. This MX-5 was struggling a little bit with the straight line speed, although able to make some very, very big dives under braking. Of course, when you've got such a small, light car, you could make some big, impressive overtakes, although the Mercedes would be diving into the pits anyway. As said, the pit stops were gradually filtering their way through. There was no kind of, again, much as we have seen more and more with these races, the pit stops stayed relatively spread out, so there was no kind of giant trend, no massive trains of cars were forming and people losing heaps and heaps of time. I would have a big dive up the inside of a Cobra in the background of this one. Yeah, the brakes on the Prowler were pretty good. The MX-5 was continuing to get mugged slightly by cars down this long straight as the Alpha Spider would find a way past, although it was all very well and good getting past the MX-5 down the straights. You had to be very aware because it would brake incredibly late coming into this twistier section, but the Alpha was able to cover the inside. No real space for the MX-5 to look for a way past. Speaking of Mazdas, this black one was still struggling slightly with the significantly faster cars. Got slightly surprised, I think, to find a Rolls-Royce getting up the inside, although it just bounces it across the curb. That causes trouble for the poor car. Everyone does a really good job of not having a massive accident at that moment in time, as the two Dawns would come soaring past when it came to this acceleration zone. The poor Mazda then coming under threat from the Plymouth, and the Prowler would get up the inside on the way into the first corner. As we said before, when you're racing in groups like this, just that one little mistake, and in this case for the MX-5 it was bouncing his way across the curbs, that can cost you quite a lot. You've got to be aware of especially some of the very, very vicious curbs. Fortunately for the Mazda, would close up big time through these braking zones, but was just not quite able to do anything about the vehicles ahead. Now, for me, things are not quite gone to plan after I'd spun the car on the final corner curb. Much as we saw the Rolls-Royce spin across in front of me, I binned the Prowler and dumped me down the order. It did mean I had some more overtaking to do. First on my list was another Rolls-Royce Dawn. I was quite sick of seeing the back of these cars. However, the fantastic brakes on the Prowler meant I could dive up the inside. You could take huge dives with this car. I mean, the Rolls-Royce had braked very, very late, but even that didn't stand a chance against the Plymouth. The Datsun, trying to defend around this final corner, ended up carrying too much speed and running a bit wide. No problem for the Prowler, able to cut back to the inside and have the acceleration. It was a very, very impressive car. The Sunbeam Tiger was at the front, and as they came onto the final lap, the Jaguar had an opportunity to try and get past. The problem for the Jaguar, well, it had stupendous straight line speed, incredibly fast down these straights. I mean, the Tiger was blooming quick as well, but it was nothing compared to the Jaguar. However, the Jag could not quite carry the corner speed necessary to find a way past the Tiger, which meant the Sunbeam would go on to take victory. Jaguar in second place, a Honda S2000 claiming third, in a fair way down the road from the rest of the field. I love that the driver cars will continue the battle. A little bit of a bump around the first corner there from the Jaguar. Our final race, and we would head to the Hockenheim short circuit, one of my favourite tracks for doing these sort of races with. Again, I didn't have a particularly good grid start. I was well down the order. As we come into the first corner, a few vehicles having troubles running wide. I'd had to take to the outside to avoid, quite a few cars further back I had to take to the outside to try and avoid the slight shenanigans going on further back. The leaders had got through cleanly, though. This Mercedes would get a good run out of the second corner, find a way past the Corvette, while up ahead, first and second, would have a little bit of a dice into the next turn. The Alfa Romeo spotting an opportunity. The Tiger was out a little bit wide, although the Alfa took a very, very tight line, and that tends to make you a bit slow off of the corner. That very nearly gave the Mercedes a chance to have a look, although the Merc just that little bit too far back. As I said, I had a poor grid spot for all of these races particularly, so plenty more overtaking to be done in the Plymouth. Suited me because the car was fantastic at finding ways around vehicles. Trying to go around the outside of an MX-5 for the final couple of turns didn't quite work, although I could cut back to the inside and get a mega run down this start-finish straight, and sure enough, would breeze past the Mazda. Thought about having to go up the inside into turn 1 on a 914, but couldn't quite get far enough alongside to make that one stick, still though carrying great speed into the second corner, once more having a sniff up the inside. The Porsche tries to get on the power too soon, runs wide. The Dawn and the BMW Z8 would both kind of slow each other down, and I would pounce and get past a lot of them. Very helpful when the three cars ahead of you all kind of have their own little issues, and this car again has got the grip and got the acceleration to exploit whatever opportunities that came my way. Yeah, very impressed with the Prowler. Now, speaking of the Rolls-Royces, we did have a couple more Dawns in this race, and this particular one was making an almighty train of cars behind him. The problem was the Rolls-Royce was not particularly well suited to this track. It couldn't really carry the corner speed. However, especially this one had some stupendous acceleration and straight line speed, which meant whenever we got even to the slightest of straights, the Rolls-Royce could fly off into the distance, challenging this MX-5 into turn 1. The Rolls-Royce would get up the inside. Of course, he couldn't really carry the corner speed. The MX-5 would fend him off. But again, now we're onto another acceleration zone. The Rolls-Royce is having a go, and the MX-5 is now being compromised through these corners. The MX-5 can't carry as much speed through here as it really wants to. So now when we come to this next slightly curved straight, the Rolls-Royce is closer and will pounce, simply out-dragging the MX-5 down towards these next turns. And now the Rolls-Royce is back to trying desperately to defend his position. And all the meanwhile behind him, well, positions are changing quicker than I could even begin to count. The Porsche is up there challenging. There's Jaguar involved, the BMW Z8. They're all looking for a way past the Rolls-Royce, but they're all fighting one another, and this helps the Dawn out. The more they squabble for position, they're now going 3 wide behind the Dawn. The Jaguar tries to get up the inside, gets a big two-wheel moment, clobbers the side of the Porsche. Amazingly, the 718 is okay with all of that. Now the Z8 is up into the kind of Rolls-Royce challenging position as they run side by side through that final turn. Up ahead, an S2000 is challenging with a Rolls-Royce, and now we come to the start-finish straight, and the Rolls-Royce can pull away and gets that little bit of breather. Yeah, very difficult cars to pass around here. I was continuing to make progress through the field with the Plymouth, spotted a gap on the inside around the hairpin once more, making the most of this car's acceleration as the Mercedes has to go the long way around. Not really ideal being on the outside for these final couple of corners, so I'm more than happy to again cut back to the inside to side up the inside of that Mercedes and would get the pass done here. Still a couple more cars though ahead of me in close proximity. Got to be really careful with these first corner curbs. You see all of us are pushing our cars. All of us are bouncing our way across them. We didn't have any major issues, but it wouldn't be that hard for cars to have problems. The Alpha gets a little bit of a slide trying to put the power down, and that'll be the Plymouth straight pass. As soon as there was an opportunity, the Prowler was able to make the most of it and gain a position, and now it was to deal with the Datsun that just outbrakes himself a little bit into this next corner, trying to go defensive. Once more, doesn't stand a chance. The Prowler has got that grip to take a tight line through there to get up the inside and would put me up into third place. Although my time fighting through the field had put me a fair way back from first and second. You could just about see them up in the distance. And we are back to the Rolls-Royce train. This continued for quite some laps. The MX-5 was looking and couldn't find a way past, and in the looking for a way past would come immediately under threat from a Jaguar. Porsche 914 had joined in this group. The 718 I think made a mistake and dropped back off of this train. The Jag tried to go around the outside of the final turn. Would make the move stick on the MX-5. The Z8 would pounce as well at an opportunity, but again, they're still just too far back from the Rolls-Royce. Jag getting huge two-wheel moments across the inside. It is a vicious inside curb here at turn 1. The Z8 had made his way up, has a big dive into the second corner, a great move from the BMW, as finally there would be a car clear of the Rolls-Royce. That is from a long way back as well. I don't think the BMW quite expected. He was going for the Jaguar, didn't quite expect to be able to get up alongside the Rolls-Royce, but yeah, hell of a move to put the BMW clear in this battle. But still, the Jaguar looking for a way past. The Jag goes to the inside, tries to make a move stick there, but doesn't really quite have the grip to do anything, and in trying to do that manoeuvre, he's now slowed himself down. The MX-5 get up the inside of the Jag, regain that position. Jaguar, they've got mega run actually out of the hairpin, would fend off the Mazda. The Porsche is now wiggling about in the background trying to find a way past, and again the cars behind the Rolls-Royce are so busy fighting one another that it's just doing enough to keep the door ahead, even with a little bit of bumping through the final corner as the Rolls gets a little bit sideways. Still, they can't find a way past. The Dawn has just got that acceleration. Another BMW is coming to join in this group as they're all slowing each other. That's 3 wide behind again into this second corner, and the Porsche would come out the best. Now it's the Porsche's turn to be the one behind the row. It just constantly changed. Constantly changing positions back there. This little section of cars will actually remain close throughout the race, while after I came through and vanished off up the road, these guys, yeah, stayed close throughout the entire race. That was a huge two-wheel moment. I just realised how far that Mercedes got on 2 wheels through that first corner. Yeah, a dangerous place to be clobbering the curb. The S2000 was trying to join in and find a way past, but once again, the Datsuns were proving to be pretty damn quick accelerating despite a poor run through that second corner. The Datsun was able to outdrag the S2000 down this next section, would defend the inside this time, not running too wide. The Honda, unable to make a pass at this particular moment. But yeah, once again, Hockenheim was proving to be an interesting circuit, or a great fun circuit to go racing around, although there were quite large gaps in parts of the field. At the front, though, while there had been absolute chaos further back, it would be a Sunbeam Tiger that would go on to take a relatively calm victory. Got the lead on lap 1, managed to make a little bit of a gap back to second place, and just stayed out here, stayed out of trouble. A relatively quiet race. I was back in third and was catching second. I just ran out of laps to do anything about it. Us 3 at the front were setting laps about a second and a half quicker than the rest of the field. We were absolutely flying out here. Me in second place were, sort of 2-3 tenths faster than the leader, but never ever going to be able to catch up the gap that he had after the first couple of laps. So Yeah, not quite such an exciting race at the front, but yeah, hell of a battle going on further back. Unfortunately, the Rolls-Royce would have a spin that would end that train. The Plymouth Prowler, I've got to say, I was mighty impressed with. It may well be my B-class car of choice at the moment. It is a hell of a quick car to drive. It's the way it gets out of the corners that is so impressive. You can carry a lot of corner speed and it can accelerate out of turns, take very, very tight lines out of turns that often, cars would really struggle to make any speed with, but the Prowler could manage it. It hunted down just about everything in these races. It was a mighty good car. I highly recommend it as a race vehicle. I know it's a slightly obscure choice, but it is one hell of a good vehicle. However, that is going to be it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 14th of July. We are going to go racing with A-Class mid-engined cars. If you would like to take part in that, then you can sign up via our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the Failrace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. But that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.